Pam from Stella Crafts by Pam, and today I actually have a series of cards for you. The idea for these cards came from a little girl named Madison in Orlando, Florida. She made the news because she handmade a collection of cards using some basic craft materials like markers and crayons and construction paper. And all of these cards she handed out among those in her neighborhood who were affected by the tragedies that occurred this past weekend. To keep this video short, you can find more information about creating Smiles Orlando, Florida in the blog post I have linked below. Now, as far as my cards, I wanted to create a design that would be easy to replicate so that I can make multiples to send. For the main design of my cards, I'm using some papers from the Authentique Radiant collection. This collection really has a lot of nice prints and a nice collection of colors. What's nice about these pattern papers is that on every sheet of pattern paper, on the back, there is a solid color that actually matches the corresponding pattern sheet. So in the video, you've seen that I've cut each pattern paper down to 4¼ by 5½, which will cover the front of my card base. And I'm using the scrap paper to do some die cutting to match each corresponding pattern paper. For the sentiment on my card, I'm using the Hero Arts Prayers stamp and corresponding die set. So for each piece of scrap paper, I'm die cutting the word prayers, and I'm also die cutting the word prayers from some fun foam so that I can add this to the back of the die cut to create some dimension on my cards. I'm adhering the die cut pieces together using a fine tip glue pen from Stampin' Up. If I had had a refill in my Xyron sticker machine, I would have used that instead, as I feel like it would have left the die cuts looking a lot more neat. Instead, I was having an off day and I just picked up the first adhesive that I saw, and with it being liquid adhesive, I got it everywhere. So just a note for future reference, when using adhesive to adhere die cuts to a card, it would be a lot more effective to use something like a Xyron sticker machine or Ranger Multi-Matte Medium so that there is no excess adhesive or it doesn't show because it's matte rather than glossy. So now you can see that I am again using those scraps from my pattern paper, and whatever color I use for each pattern paper for the prayers die cut, I'm using that same color to die cut a stitch circle that's going to go with that prayers die cut and the matching pattern paper. You can see here all the pattern papers I'm going to be using for my cards, as well as a circle and prayer die cuts that are going to go with those pattern papers. The prayers die cut is going to be the first part of the sentiment, but then I'm going to stamp the second part of the sentiment from the prayer stamp set onto the matching circle die cut. Also, in order to make those die cut pieces really pop on the card and stand out from the pattern paper, I'm also cutting down another solid cardstock piece to coordinate with the pattern paper, and I'm cutting these down to 4¼ by 1¾ To adhere these pieces, I'm lining up my card base with the grid on my cutting mat, and then I'm placing the piece of cardstock 1¼ inch from the top of the card, and I'm using that grid to line it up straight. Here you can see the finished look of the card where I've used that cardstock piece to really make that prayers die cut as well as a circle die cut stand out from the rest of the card. Otherwise, I feel that the prayers die cut really would have kind of blended into the background instead of being the focal point of the card. I wanted to finish the prayer sentiment by stamping "and hugs coming your way" from the prayers stamp set. Anytime I'm stamping a sentiment especially, I usually pull out my MISTI tool so that I can get a precise position for my sentiment. Because I'm using a range of different colored stitch circles, I decided to stamp my sentiment in 2 different colors. If the color was dark, I decided to use Colonial White from Close to My Heart to stamp the sentiment, and then if it was a lighter color cardstock, I decided to use Early Espresso ink from Stampin' Up. Now the Close to My Heart ink, or at least the Colonial White ink, is a pigment ink, so once I was done stamping, I had to actually heat set that, and even after heating it for a little bit, it wasn't completely dry, so I had to be a little bit careful when I was putting my cards together. Because I adhered fun foam to the back of my prayer sentiment, I decided that it was necessary to also use some foam tape to pop up the rest of the sentiment to make it coordinate. And here is what I was talking about earlier when I said that using my adhesive to adhere the prayers die cut to my card got a little messy because of the glue that I chose to use. Either way, to make sure the die cut was completely adhered to the card, I used some stamp blocks to put some weight on the die cut so that it would dry adhered to the card. To salvage my cards and try to hide some of the excess glue on the sentiment, I used some Spectrum Noir sparkle glitter to finish off the cards. So here are my finished cards. All that's left to do is write a little note of encouragement on the inside of the cards and send them off to Madison to distribute. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.